Old Hollywood glittered, but behind the marquees were secrets that could erase a career overnight. From the 1910s through the 1970s, studios enforced morality clauses, gossip columns hunted scandal, and even a whisper could freeze a contract. Many performers built spotless public images while managing private lives in the shadows. Arranged romances, carefully planted stories, and friendships recast as publicity. Some were outed by tabloids or police stings. Others kept their truth behind closed doors until the very end. Today we're pulling back the curtain on 21 stars whose off-screen realities were far more complicated than the posters suggested. We'll keep facts clear, label rumors as rumors, and move fast, one name at a time, to show how pressure, secrecy, and survival shaped an entire era. 1. Rudolph Valentino. Rudolph Valentino, the silent screen's Latin lover, was adored worldwide, but his private life sparked endless rumors. His first marriage collapsed immediately, and his second, to Natasha Rambova, was short-lived, fueling speculation. Close friendships with men, including French actor Jean Aurel, only deepened gossip. Later, documents hinted at possible same-sex encounters, though biographers disagreed. Valentino denied the claims, but his graceful mannerisms kept whispers alive. When he died suddenly in 1926, at just 31, the mystery of his true self became part of his legend. 2. Geer. Geer, beloved as Grandpa Walton on the Waltons, lived a private life that contrasted with his wholesome screen image. In the 1930s, he had a relationship with activist Harry Hay, later founder of the gay rights movement. Geer eventually married actress Herta Ware and had 3 children, though the couple later divorced. He was open with her about his sexuality and remained active in both leftist politics and gay rights circles. When he passed away in 1978, he left behind a legacy of artistry, activism, and quiet resilience. 3. Liberace. The flamboyant pianist, known for sequins and sparkle, became one of the world's most famous entertainers. Yet he fiercely denied being gay, even giving interviews about the type of woman he might marry. Behind the curtain, however, he carried on relationships with men, most notably with Scott Thorson, who later sued him in a sensational palimony case. Despite endless speculation, Liberace maintained his public image until his death in 1987 from AIDS-related complications. The mystery behind his dazzling smile became as legendary as his music. 4. Sir John Gielgud. Sir John Gielgud, one of Britain's most celebrated actors, spent much of his life with his sexuality considered an open secret in theatre circles. In 1953, he was arrested in London for immoral purposes, a charge frequently used against gay men at the time. The scandal could have destroyed his career, but Gielgud returned to the stage with renewed acclaim, proving his unmatched resilience. Though he never publicly discussed his orientation, colleagues admired his quiet dignity. By his death in 2000, his reputation as a theatrical legend remained intact. 5. Cesar Romero. Cesar Romero, remembered as the flamboyant Joker in the 1960s Batman series, was also Hollywood's classic Latin lover. Known for his suave charm and bachelor lifestyle, Romero never married, fueling decades of speculation. He was often linked to glamorous actresses, yet insiders whispered about his relationships with men. Romero never confirmed or denied the rumors, choosing instead to keep his personal life private while maintaining steady work in film and television. When he died in 1994, he left behind a legacy of elegance, charisma, and enduring mystery. 6. Raymond Burr. Raymond Burr, famed for Perry Mason, carefully built a false backstory to protect his private life. He often spoke of a wife and child who had supposedly died, but biographers later revealed these stories were entirely fabricated. In truth, Burr shared a long partnership with actor Robert Benavides, lasting over 3 decades. The two quietly built a life and business ventures together, far from the spotlight. Burr never publicly acknowledged his sexuality, and it was only widely recognized after his death in 1993, adding poignancy to his celebrated legacy. 7. Tony Randall. Tony Randall, adored as Felix Unger in The Odd Couple, was admired for his wit and sophistication. Despite a long marriage to Florence Gibbs and later a surprising second marriage to Heather Harlan, 50 years his junior, rumors about his sexuality persisted throughout his career. Randall's refined mannerisms and cultured persona fueled speculation, though he never addressed it publicly. Instead, he focused on his craft, remaining a beloved presence on stage and screen. By his death in 2004, Randall was remembered more for his talent than the whispers that surrounded him. 8. James Mitchell. James Mitchell, known for his role as Palmer Cortlandt on All My Children, enjoyed a long career on stage and screen. While he never publicly discussed his sexuality, he lived privately with costume designer Albert Wolski for nearly 4 decades. Colleagues respected his warmth and professionalism, and friends admired the quiet honesty with which he lived. Mitchell avoided scandal, keeping his personal life out of the spotlight. When he passed away in 2010 from chronic lung disease, he left behind a legacy of talent, dignity, and enduring love. 9. Montgomery Clift. Montgomery Clift, hailed as one of Hollywood's most talented actors, brought raw intensity to films like A Place in the Sun and From Here to Eternity. Off-screen, he struggled with his sexuality and battled inner turmoil, with relationships involving both men and women. A devastating car accident in 1956 left him physically and emotionally scarred, leading to years of addiction. Supported by close friends like Elizabeth Taylor, Clift remained a deeply sensitive figure. He died in 1966 at just 45, remembered as a gifted yet tragically tormented star. 10. George Nader. George Nader, a rising 1950s leading man, saw his Hollywood career falter as rumors about his sexuality grew. Handsome and charismatic, he seemed destined for stardom, but quietly stepped back from the spotlight when the industry turned cold. Nader shared his life with actor Mark Miller, his devoted partner for more than 50 years. Later, he moved to Europe, where he found more freedom and turned to writing. When he passed away in 2002, Nader was remembered for both his talent and the quiet resilience with which he lived. 11. Merv Griffin. Merv Griffin, creator of Jeopardy! And Wheel of Fortune, became one of television's most powerful moguls. Publicly, he projected the image of a charming host and savvy businessman, but his private life drew constant speculation. Lawsuits and tabloid stories hinted at same-sex relationships, yet Griffin never confirmed or denied the rumors. Instead, he kept his focus on building an entertainment empire. When he died in 2007, he left behind a lasting legacy in television, while the mystery of his personal life remained one of Hollywood's enduring unanswered questions. 12. Rock Hudson. The ultimate Hollywood heartthrob built his career on romantic roles opposite glamorous leading ladies. Behind the scenes, he lived in fear that his sexuality, if exposed, would destroy everything. To maintain appearances, he even entered into a short-lived marriage of convenience. Privately, however, Hudson had relationships with men throughout his life. In 1984, his AIDS diagnosis forced his truth into the public eye, shattering his carefully crafted image. 13. Kerwin Mathews. Best known for fantasy adventures like The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, charmed audiences with his heroic on-screen image. When his Hollywood career slowed, he quietly left the spotlight and built a private life in San Francisco. There, he lived openly with his partner, Tom Nichol, for over 4 decades. Friends remembered them as a devoted couple who avoided publicity but embraced happiness on their own terms. 14. Paul Lynde. The sharp-tongued comedian of Hollywood squares became famous for his biting wit and flamboyant humor. His campy style made him a television favorite, but it also fueled whispers about his private life. Within Hollywood, it was widely known that Lynde was gay, though he never spoke of it publicly, fearing damage to his career. Off-screen, he struggled with alcohol and the loneliness of living in secrecy. Lynde died of a heart attack in 1982, remembered for both his brilliant comedic timing and the personal battles he carried in silence. 15. Jack Cassidy. A charismatic Broadway and television star, dazzled audiences with his voice and charm. Married to actress Shirley Jones, he was the father of 3 sons, including teen idol David Cassidy. Behind the polished image, rumors of bisexuality swirled, with colleagues recalling his affairs with both men and women. Cassidy also struggled with alcoholism and personal turmoil, which strained his family life and career. 16. Charles Gray. Charles Gray is remembered as Blofeld in the James Bond films, and the witty criminologist in the Rocky Horror Picture Show built his reputation on commanding performances. Off-screen, however, he lived quietly and kept his personal life shielded from the public eye. Though he never addressed his sexuality, within the industry it was widely assumed he was gay. Reserved and private, Gray avoided scandal, focusing instead on a career that spanned stage and screen. 17. George Maharis. George Maharis rose to fame in the 1960s as the rugged star of Route 66, captivating audiences with his charisma. At the height of his career, however, scandal derailed his trajectory. In 1967, he was arrested for lewd conduct with another man, an incident that tarnished his reputation. A later arrest in the 1970s deepened the stigma, effectively ending his leading man roles. Though Maharis never publicly came out, the shadow of those scandals lingered. He continued acting sporadically, but his career never fully recovered. He later lived a quieter, more private life. 18. Roddy McDowall. Roddy McDowall, who began as a child star in How Green Was My Valley and later became iconic in Planet of the Apes, enjoyed one of Hollywood's longest, most versatile careers. Known for his professionalism and kindness, he built lasting friendships with many of the industry's biggest names. Though he never publicly addressed his sexuality, it was widely considered an open secret in Hollywood. McDowall never married, preferring to keep his private life discreet. When he died of cancer in 1998, he was remembered for both his artistry and his quiet dignity. 19. Nigel Hawthorne. Nigel Hawthorne, acclaimed for Yes Minister and the Madness of King George, earned respect for his refined performances and commanding presence. Privately, he lived with his partner, Trevor Bentham, for more than 20 years. though they kept their relationship discreet. In 1995, Hawthorne was outed by the British press during the Academy Awards, forcing him into an unwanted spotlight. He handled the situation with grace, later speaking openly about his sexuality. 20. James Coco. James Coco, celebrated for his comedic flair in films like Only When I Laugh and Man of La Mancha, became one of Hollywood's most recognizable character actors. With his expressive personality and humor, he won both critical acclaim and audience affection. Though he never publicly addressed his sexuality, it was widely known within his social circles that he was gay. Coco preferred to keep his personal life private, focusing instead on his art. 21. Dick Sargent. Best known as the second Darren Stevens on Bewitched, spent decades hiding his private life to protect his career. In 1991, he took the bold step of coming out publicly, making him one of the few actors of his generation to do so. From then on, Sargent used his platform to advocate for LGBTQ rights and to raise awareness about the HIV/AIDS crisis at a time when it was still heavily stigmatized. The golden age of Hollywood promised glamour, but for many stars, it also demanded silence. Behind the carefully staged romances and studio-crafted images were real people, forced to hide fundamental truths about themselves. Some, like Rock Hudson and Dick Sargent, eventually became symbols of change, while others, such as Rudolph Valentino and Cesar Romero, carried their secrets to the grave. What unites all 21 is the courage it took simply to survive in an industry and a society that would not accept them as they were. Their stories remind us that fame often came at a painful cost, but also that visibility, even delayed or posthumous, can shape history. Today, their legacies live on, both on screen and in the progress they helped inspire.